The first thing I want to show you is the Blood Bowl game board. The game board contains several components, one of them the pitch on which the game is played. As you can see, the pitch is made of several squares, each marked by these crosses at their corners. Also, the pitch contains several zones. On the sides you have these white zones on both sides of the pitch, and they are marked by these white dotted lines on either side. Also, on the opposite sides of the game board there are the end zones, which are the last rows on each side. This is where you score the touchdowns. At the front, between the white zones, the two front lines on each half, that is called the line of scrimmage. It is where you have to set up a required number of players before you start the game. Also on the game board you can find the score tracks, which are these two tracks over here, and they contain the score markers which you can move as you score touchdowns. Besides the main game board, each player also receives their own dugout. The dugout contains several areas. The three areas at the top are for players. The first is the reserves box. Here you can store fresh players who can substitute players later on in the match. The knocked out box is the box where you store your mildly injured players who might be able to rejoin the match later on. The dead and injured box, the final box over here, is used for players who are so injured they can't join the match, or sometimes any match at all. Below the player boxes are the two turn tracks, which are used to mark the progress of the game. Each consists of 8 tracks, and there is a turn track for the first half and the second half. You use the turn marker to mark the current turn. Below the turn track you will find the reroll track. The reroll track is used to keep track of how many rerolls you have left for this half. As soon as you use a reroll, you just flip the marker to show that it's used. Besides their own dugout, each player also receives their own two-sided reference sheet. This contains several tables. At the top of the front side you'll find the agility table. This table is used to show what results you will need in order to perform actions successfully, and also what modifiers are used when performing that specific action. Below that you'll find the blocking table. The blocking table shows you how many blocking dice you roll when performing a block action, and also what the different dice results mean. There's also a list of the most basically used skills. It's not all of the skills that actually mentioned in the Blood Bowl rulebook or the Living rulebook, but it lists the most commonly used and gives a short explanation of those. There's also tables for rolling injuries, kickoff events, and a weather table, but I'll mention these further on in this tutorial. Blood Bowl comes supplied with 3 templates. The first of these is this scatter template. This is used for determining the direction of the ball after, for instance, a failed pass. To use it, you have to place the center square over the current square of the ball, and then you roll an 8-sided die, and the ball will travel in the rolled direction. I think it's actually a lot easier, instead of grabbing the template every time, just to leave it in a fixed position on the sidelines, and when you have to scatter the ball, just roll the d8, check the template for the direction the ball is traveling in. Besides the scatter template, the game also comes supplied with this sidelines template, which shows you where the ball will travel after it's been out of bounds, and with this range ruler, which will show you what range your pass will be. The game also contains several dice. There are 3 dice for blocking, an 8-sided die which is used when scattering the ball, and also your basic 6-sided dice. Furthermore, in order to play Blood Bowl, every player of course needs their own team. As an example, I've placed 2 teams on the pitch. On this side you can see a human team, and over here my favorite, the undead. The copy of Blood Bowl I own is the 3rd edition. It came out somewhere in the mid-90s, I believe. Supplied with the base game was the handbook, which contains the set of rules to play single matches of Blood Bowl. Shortly after, Games Workshop released their expansion Dead Zone. That zone is supplied with the playbook, which contains everything you need to set up your own league or to guide a team throughout league play. In league play, your players can really gain experience, and with them they gain new skills and new abilities, which makes running a team a lot more interesting. Over the years, many players have written Games Workshop with suggestions for the rules and also the league competition rules for Blood Bowl. Games Workshop has been compiling these into a volume they now call the Blood Bowl competition rules. This is a fine-tuned set of rules which has a few minor changes to the base rules, but most of the changes really are into the league rules. As in this tutorial I'll just cover the base game, you won't find many changes there with the 3rd edition, but where there are changes I will use the rules as mentioned in the Blood Bowl competition rules.